Hi, I'm Greg Walton, and this is Making LGBTQ Parish Ministries Work. This is a presentation that I gave at the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Los Angeles at its annual Religious Education Congress. And they weren't able to record my presentation, so I decided to do a YouTube video so I can kind of mix in my talk with my slides and that kind of thing. So here we are. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to actually do 3 separate videos to make the 5 points that I have in this presentation, in part because the presentation is a little bit more than an hour, and I'd like for folks to be able to take a section and discuss it in their parish community or in a small group setting, and then go on to the next part, right? So this is part 1. This is going to be about experiencing the call to LGBTQ ministry and building proximity to the community. Part 2, the second video, will be on educating staff and parishioners about the needs of the LGBTQ community and why ministry is important. And then part 3, the third video, will be assessing your parish and what do LGBTQ plus people want. So a lot of this content I have is from New Ways Ministry, and you can find them on newwaysministry.org. And I have some videos from LGBTQ Catholic ministry leaders. So here's the first part, experiencing the call. This is something to bring to your prayer. You know, you're watching this, right? So you're absolutely wondering about how ministry should work, or maybe you're not sure. And so it's a good thing to bring this to your prayer and ask God, you know, are you calling me to this work? How can I be of service? And so I'm going to share with you my call, how I got to be doing this. First off, it starts with my family. My wife, Mary, and I are the parents of 5 children. And so I have a little picture here I'm going to pull up. So this is Mary. Next to Mary is Sarah. Sarah is 25. She's married to Austin. And they have given us our first grandchild and the first great-grandchild, Emery. And then next to Sarah is Evie. She's 23, just graduated college. Then we have Daniel. He's 19, just graduated high school. You have Joseph, who's a corporal with the U.S. Marine Corps. And we have Jesse, who's 27, and Jesse is married to Patrick. And they have given us 2 grandpuppies, Bennett and Bruno. Out of our 5 kids, 2 are LGBTQ. Both Jesse and Evie are gender non-conforming and have different sexual orientations. You'd think that my experience or call to LGBTQ ministry began with my kids. And yes, my active interest did begin there. But I'd have to say that my calling really began with an experience I had at 16 in high school. I was on vacation with my family in northern Indiana, and the local Catholic parish there was holding a dance for the teens. So I decided to go to the dance. So I wore what I would have worn to a party with my friends in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. I had an oversized suit coat, t-shirt, jeans, sneakers. I put some gel in my hair. I was ready for a night on the town. So it was walking distance to the dance, so I walked to the dance. And there weren't a lot of kids there dancing, and it was pretty obvious I was dressed a little different than everybody else. But I got my courage up, and I asked a girl to dance. I met some other friends, and we hung out for a little bit. And it was curfew time, so I walked home. And on my way home, 3 other kids who were at the event were following me. And one caught up with me, pinned me to the ground, took out a knife like this, and put it to my throat. And said, "You're obviously gay, so tell me why I shouldn't slit your throat right now." Now, I was already a pretty deep person of faith. I had had an encounter with God, and where I began to grasp, I think, what Paul writes about in Ephesians 3:18. You know, how long and wide and high and deep is the love of Christ? And I was really pursuing to know that love, that I could be filled to the measure of the fullness of God and also share that experience with others so that they could have it too. So I began to witness to this kid. And I have to admit, I figured that bringing Jesus into the conversation would impact his moral compass a bit and maybe get him to think about whether or not what he was doing was the right thing. And it worked. He let me up. And he said, "So you're you're a Christian? And I said, yeah, well, we'll get out of here. I don't want to see your face around here again. And I went home and told my parents what happened. And they said, well, that's your fault, wearing what you did, going to that dance. So this experience revealed to me that there is a grave lack of justice with how LGBTQ people are treated. And even in the context of church, and how unawares we are to how people are being treated in the shadows, and also how LGBTQ people who are trying to just be their authentic selves are being treated at home by their parents. So getting back to my family, whenever I talk to people about my family, I'm often faced with a conundrum, right? A decision of how much to say. Because they'll say, well, how many kids do you have? Oh, I have 5. Oh, really? How many boys? How many girls? And I have to go, right? Because 2 are gender non-conforming. And so what I'll do is I'll just kind of breeze by it, and I'll just say, well, we have Jesse, Sarah, Evie, Joseph, Daniel, right? And just kind of let them take it from there and figure out who's who on their own. But sometimes they press a little bit more. So you have 3 girls and 2 boys, and I have to go, well, no. Actually, we have 2 boys, a girl, and 2 in the middle. And that usually gets and opens up a whole new conversation. And oftentimes when I'm talking to a person who's a person of faith, I get like, it's too bad, Greg. We all have our crosses. And that's where I have to explain that my children are not crosses, my children are gifts. And that my cross is having to explain that to people. And the gift that my children gave me is proximity, nearness, closeness to the LGBTQ, not only through my kids, but also through friends who came through our door, who were their friends, who were displaced, and kicked out of the house when they came out to their family. And I really began to hear their stories and their experiences with religion, which were very abusive, and obviously made them question, whether God loved them at all, versus the experience and reasoning that I heard kind of in a religious bubble that didn't really have any closeness to the LGBTQ community. So that's the next topic we're going to hit on here, is building proximity. And with that, I'm going to share a video by Jenny Naughton, and she's going to talk to you about her call and also what she's gathered by accompanying LGBTQ people through her ministry in San Dimas, California. Here's Jenny Naughton.
My name is Jenny Naughton. I facilitate the LGBT ministry at Holy Name of Mary Catholic Church in San Dimas, California. The name of our ministry is No Barriers to Christ. We started the ministry in 2007, actually at a different parish. After we'd been in ministry for a few years, I was asked to be on a panel at LA Congress. Dr. Greer Gordon was doing a session on acceptance of LGBT youth. I told the story of a young man who had called me and said, I got your number at Long Beach Pride from a booth that has a big sign that says, Welcome Home Catholics. And they told me that you could tell me of a church where I could attend. And I have to say, it made my heart sink that a person has to feel like they need to call in advance to make sure that a church is a safe place for them to be. And I'm going to make it my life's mission that doesn't have to happen in the future. So I asked this young man to tell me about himself, and he said that my mom only lets me live at home because I can't afford to live on my own. She won't speak to me unless she needs to. She won't look at me in the face when she does talk to me. And she told me that I can't attend her church, the church where I grew up in and made my sacraments. So I told him, it just so happens we're having a ministry fair this weekend, and I want you to come up to my booth and tell me your name, and I'm going to give you a big mom hug because you deserve it. Now, in the session at Congress, after I told the story, I offered to give a mom hug to the crowd, the people there. For the next day and a half, I had people coming up to me. They were coming to my booth, or actually even stopped me in the hallway and said, you're the lady with the mom hug. I want a mom hug. I need a mom hug. And people would put their arms around me and they would tell me things like, my mom threw me out 20 years ago when I told her that I'm gay. My mom doesn't know that I'm gay, and I'm never going to be able to tell her. I did hear, my mom gives the best mom hugs, but she's just not around right now. One young woman sobbed as she said, my mom died before I could tell her who I am, and I know that she doesn't accept me now. And with full confidence, I said, do you feel my arms around you? These are the arms of your mother who is in heaven with our Lord, who created you, perfect. In God's image, he created you. And she wants you to know that she loves you and she accepts you just the way you are. She knows the struggles that you've been through, and she wants you to stay strong. So I have to say thank you, Greg, for doing this session. Thank you to all the people who are willing to take a chance to create a safe, loving, and welcoming environment for LGBT people. We've come a long way in the 15 years that I've been involved in this ministry, but we have a lot more work to do. Thank you.
So when it comes to experiencing LGBTQ people in the context of church, it's not a matter of if an LGBTQ person is going to start attending your church. And it's actually not a matter of when an LGBTQ person is going to start attending your church. It's a matter of when the people who are already there are going to come out, and if they feel like church is a safe place to come out to. So Jenny mentioned the importance of being present. Just like the sacraments are a visible sign of God's invisible reality, the church needs to be a visible sign of love to the LGBTQ community. One of the ways that Jenny's ministry was doing that was a presence at Pride. I can't tell you how many people have come back to the church because they saw a rainbow sign at a Pride festival that said, "Welcome home Catholics," either at a booth or in a parade. If that's a little bit too much for your parish and where you're at right now, there's other ways you can give visible signs. One can be like, I got my rainbow fish pin. One of my favorites is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And it's Be the Voice button, which brings a lot of awareness to suicidality and how it intersects with the LGBTQ community. Or my Homeboy Industries rainbow shirt. Just being a ministry of presence as a staff person in your parish community. Then there's the importance of going out and making connections to LGBTQ people. One organization is PFLAG. I highly recommend it. It is a fellowship for LGBTQ folks, their family, friends, and allies. They usually meet once a month. They got chapters all over the country in every major city and surrounding communities. So you can find one near you and go and build relationships there. Also at your local Pride, just yourself. It's a great opportunity to meet other families with rainbow kids. For me, I volunteer with a local organization and its youth booth. And it's also a wonderful time just to make connections and build community. There's also local support organizations. So in Nashville area, we have the Williamson Social Justice Alliance, and they have an LGBTQ youth task force called Wilco Iris. Our community center in Nashville, the Oasis Center, has a youth group called Just Us for LGBTQ youth. Evie was a part of that. And then there's social media. People have reached out to me just because they saw me posting supportive things about my kids, that sent a positive message and told them that I was a safe place to come and talk to in my parish. So that is building proximity. So this concludes part 1 of making LGBTQ Parish Ministries work. And the next video, part 2, will be on educating staff and parishioners about why your church should be doing LGBTQ Parish Ministry. So I'll see you there. I'm Greg Walton. Thanks for joining me.